wouldn't work. Now it's
See
live.
if you can follow us. It's MF.
I don't know. Now I got to find the link to share.
It's
Okay, there we
MF
go.
Epley at G.
Now we got to put it on my Facebook. You know, new
I
link.
know, I had to do that too.
Everybody done shared that other link. Let's see if I can
Okay.
edit. I maybe can edit the post.
Oh, problem.
Let me see if I can edit the post. And it'll probably let people re-click the link. That's probably the easiest way to do it, honestly. Oh, that's not gonna let me do it from there. Because it's my post. It's mine. Yeah, I'm gonna go to my thing.
Yeah, see you coming cute. I'm fine. That's so cute.
Tim's here, so he could try to install Skype for us.
Let's see if that link works.
That was what we were having trouble with.
We got it. Everybody on the wrong link.
They'll catch up.
Did somebody say new link? Please go back to the original post. Click the link again.
Post it there too.
Alright, Tim's gonna try to install Skype.
Or click below. Oh, and I gotta update all my links. Okay. Oh, I can't close the window. They're not there yet. Nobody's there yet. Good. Siobhan, hit the link, see if it works.
Which one?
It doesn't matter. I already updated the post.
You have what?
It doesn't matter. I already updated the post.
It's telling me is the event was beginning.
Yeah.
It went back to the old one.
That's the one from Kilo.
No. Click the one that I posted.
Yeah.
No. Click the one that I posted.
Okay.
Did that one work?
It's pulling up. Yep, I'm looking at your face.
Okay. Okay. Let's see if we can get it.
You need this because that's from the journey back.
Oh, here go mine behind me.
Okay.
Right behind me.
Here, back up.
Hey Tim, how are you, baby?
Well, I thought you
Good.
when you get a chance, come to email your things or or did you already print it?
Just drove down. I haven't got no lotion on my feet, so it tells you what kind of morning we're having here. You know, just the ashy feet day. Okay.
Alright,
She working on that
If
part.
you send me your signature page, I'll put the names on it. Send it back in.
Where is it at?
He sent it in the email he sent to you about with your defense day and everything. It's in there. So forward me that, and then I'll put the names on your signature page. And send it to you.
At Gmail.
I guess I can go to the old link too. There we go. That's what I can do. I can actually go to the old one. Go to this one that she has up here, and it'll take us to that one. That's the old one. 6 people waiting. Get out, people.
It's 9 on one of them.
New link.
But let's try Skype. Let's go to Skype. Natasha. You still got that? Now, what is your Skype?
What did they see it?
I never logged in as the ECU English department. I just thought about that. Oh,
That is not a good angle. Oh, it's 9 people watching. Well, I guess people done seen it. Hey, y'all. Now people done moved.
Oh, it was for perspective. All right, now I'm gonna call you. Okay. Oh, I hear it. All right, girl. Thank you.
Look at Natasha picture, looking cute.
Hey.
Hey, girl.
I can't see y'all.
Oh,
We all waved, you're excited.
Why
damn.
can't you see us, Tim?
It says please. It say at the top. It say please select a different camera.
Oh, where?
At the top, we say audio and video settings.
First, in case that's fine.
Okay.
No,
So, all right.
You gonna turn your camera on? You gonna turn the computer on?
Camera got to turn that. Oh man. Okay, so you're going to have to go to your YouTube link to see like any questions that come up.
Why I type my password on YouTube?
Oh, no, good. Oh, no. So, cause like on the, there go my friend.
Oh, now I see y'all.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, we're just getting set up here.
This ain't my phone. Who this?
I'm the opposite.
It was Angela.
Oh, she's calling. Okay, let's get situated here.
Okay.
Okay,
Can she see us?
she can see us.
I can see y'all.
You got the slides?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, now yours is up there too.
Need to turn her around.
I downloaded your.
You gotta turn my whole computer on.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Do we need to see it so we can see her face too?
You can put her down in the corner maybe.
Oh, she can stay right there.
Oh my God, I just started the presentation.
We ain't there yet, girl.
I know. Look, I got a new computer and I'm trying to figure out how this thing works. It's not. Okay, there we go.
What's the new contract?
The live. So she and I
I'm about to mute.
She have to mute the live.
I muted mine.
And this.
And mute.
Oh no, because it's not kicking back on mine.
It's not kicking back over here either.
Okay, so yeah, you gotta.
So
You
you
want me to mute mine? Okay.
I think if you start clicking through the slides with us, then yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure that might have to happen.
You let me know when you are ready to go and then I'll mute it.
Okay.
Okay, but you can see me?
I can't see
She
you. I
can't see
need
you.
to take
Tom.
it.
Oh. Am I now seen?
No, girl.
No.
We good.
It's like I'm sitting directly across from that.
Where's the clip?
Yeah.
Where's the clip? With the clip? Where's the clip?
Oh.
So would it be better for you to be up here? Cause that's way she can see. She
No,
sees that down.
I gotta talk to y'all. Natasha got the slides.
I know, but she,
Yeah,
well, she just got to hear you
Yeah.
and not see you.
I hear you fine.
Okay.
So when you ready to roll, just tell me and I'll mute and take your slides with you.
She getting the clip. I'm trying to put my phone on do not.
Okay. When Tracy
you
gets
need-
back, we're gonna start.
Do you need this stuff? I don't know if that's you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'll talk to you.
To me?
Thank you. She's talking to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that look good?
Hmm?
Sorry. Siobhan. Does that look good to you? Are you watching it on here? I'm trying to now. I think it looks good. That's about the best.
Okay, hopefully.
Yeah, we looking good. Tip you a little dark, but
Well, I'm gonna be black today because I'm black. So that's how that's doing.
the screen looks great and we can see Natasha and we see you.
Okay.
You want the water bottle out the way? Yes, you do.
Michelle, are you supposed to say something?
Yes.
Or just go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming to Temptatious McCoy's dissertation defense. I had the honor of directing, and we're very thankful to her other committee members, Matt Cox, and Aaron Cross and Natasha Jones, who gave invaluable feedback along the way. And so here's what's going to happen. We're going to, I'm going to turn the floor over to Temptations in a second. She's going to give a 20 to 25 minute presentation on her dissertation. Then we will welcome questions from those of you who are not on the committee first. We'll privilege you all in the space first. And then we will ask you to leave. We will begin. Any questions or comments or? Okay, so I'll turn it over to you.
I thank you. That timed out too. All right, thank y'all so much for joining. So a couple things I just want to kind of let you guys know. You are going to see some footage from my digital chapter as well. So I'm going to make sure we're good. Y'all ready? Thank y'all so much for joining. So a couple things I just want to kind of let you guys know. You are going to see some footage from my digital chapter as well. So
My mom's watching.
The time is here. And now, we defend.
committee, family, friends, twerkers, trap stars, and anyone else out there that plans to beat this defense. We've come to you to the final stop on our journey to Dr. McCoy. Today, I wish to present to you all my dissertation project. Y'all call it technical professional communications. We call it for the culture. The use of amplification rhetorics in Black communities and their implications for technical professional communication studies. This project focuses on what I call amplification rhetorics in Black communities, in which I argue can contribute to the expansion and inclusion of knowledge from members of Black communities and potentially other historically marginalized and underrepresented communities to the field of TPC, the overall academy, and in our day-to-day interactions outside the academy. In this project, I identify the TPC present in the Black community spaces of trap karaoke and HBCUs to lend a new lens to how we can understand TPC. I'm right. All right. So in this defense, I'm going to do a few things. First, before we get too thick, we're going to chat about how I define TPC. Then I want to spend some time detailing my theoretical framework, amplification rhetorics. And now, based on my committee's feedback, I want to be sure that I articulate and communicate my theoretical framework as clearly as possible before we move on to my analysis. Then we're going to head and slide on to my sites of study, trap karaoke, and HBCUs, and identify the amplification rhetorics in both spaces. Thank you. So, my definition highlights the individual or group that holds communities' common sense knowledge or their expertise. So in this context, the expert's knowledge becomes technical. Individuals who do not share a community's history or practices may not be able to draw on the community's practical usage of forms of discourse, which is important to the role of expert in communicating inside and outside the community. Oddly, as I will discuss later, this working definition did not come, or at least in its entirety, until my interview with trap music musician T.I. So, now in order for me to shine light on the ways TPC can be seen in Black communities, I decided to develop a theoretical framework that centered the agency, lived experiences, and epistemologies of Black people. Now, we know there's a bit of a backstory to this, but given I got about 20 minutes to run this, I'm gonna just stick to the meat and the potatoes. So, in utilizing the theoretical framework I've developed, titled Amplification Rhetorics, I was able to centralize just how TPC has taken form in Black communities. So here's my definition for amplification rhetorics.
Amplification rhetoric are characterized by these three things. First, the recognition of agency ownership of embodied control practice. Second, this situation and acknowledgement of narrative, which is validated as narrative. And finally,
Sorry. I have another slide. So here we are first with tenet 1. So first, critical race theory asks individuals to acknowledge and evaluate how race can shape the manner in which they move in their day-to-day practice. Tenet 1 is derived from critical race theory as stated. So in becoming more aware of how as individuals or a group of individuals for which you are observing moves within your day-to-day practices, one is able to better identify their own agency within the world around them. So agency is how a person's position in the world and within society impacts their authority, ability, and potential to suggest change. The reclamation of agency as a tool for rhetorical amplification can be displayed by the strategic implementation of one's body to support body positivity and celebration. And displayed by multi-talented Black female powerhouse Lizzo, she acknowledges her position or agency in the world as a Black plus-size musician and utilizes it to address stereotypes that have been associated with her aesthetics and amplifying it the way she sees fit. This is her twerking at the BET Awards. So next is my second tenet. We have womanist theory. Womanist theory helps to better situate the need to listen to and understand the lived experiences and narratives of the bodies present in historically marginalized music. So as mentioned, in tenet 2, I lean upon womanist theory. So women like Alice Walker, Layla Phillips, and other Black women in their fight to centralize experiences and everyday methods of problem solving in which Black women must face. Tenet 2 seeks to offer a way for Black individuals to see their narratives amongst one another, in addition to validating those narratives and lived experiences. Narratives can serve as rationales for action, and I offer that in amplifying the narratives of Black individuals. We are able to better understand just why the needs call for change and additional forms of activism, even when those same narratives are not validated amongst all individuals. Validation and legitimization becomes a key turning point here. And finally, we have our third one. We have African American or Black rhetoric that places the emphasis on the intersections that shape the manner in which the epistemologies within historically marginalized groups can contribute to various fields within academia when they are centered and privileged. So, African American Black rhetoric served as a vehicle to privilege the epistemologies and ways of knowing, as discovered through the previous tenets as mentioned. So, African American or Black rhetoric essentially become the pen and paper in which one can communicate their reclamation of agency and shared lived experiences in a way that meet their community and personal needs. Tenet 3 also highlights the need to reconsider different learning styles and languages. An example of this is my use of AAVE, or African American Vernacular English, in my dissertation project. All right, bet. So for my project, I reviewed 2 sites to study: Trap Karaoke and HBCUs for instances of amplification rhetoric. Both sites of study can be found in Black communities. Now, one thing I wish to point out is that Trap Karaoke is a space that is derived out of amplification rhetoric that happens to have instances of TPC, where HBCU mission statements are TPC documents that use amplification rhetoric. I highlight the amplification rhetoric present in Trap Karaoke through trap music, Trap Karaoke attendees that wear tees for the trap, and interviews with Trap Karaoke participants. In my chapter on HBCUs, I focus on their mission statements as a genre in which I identify instances of amplification rhetoric and suggest ways that both mission statements can influence HBCU curriculum. All right. So my chapter on Trap Karaoke was entirely digital. So here's a short overview of the work I've completed and an explanation of the chapter. I decided to utilize a digital chapter because I felt it was best to showcase the Trap Karaoke space and capture the essence that is Trap Karaoke. But I also wanted to showcase a new way of dissertating, as showcased by A.D. Carson, the creator of a mixtape for his dissertation, to potentially question and argue for different mediums and forms of dissertating. The digital chapter was crafted to stand on its own, as well as speak to an audience outside of the academy. I wish to warn you, some images and audio have been sped up to meet the time requirements for this defense. Cause y'all, the chapter is like an hour and a half, so y'all gotta deal with that, okay? However, I do ask that you take notes of any additional spaces you wish for me to elaborate on later. Please be aware that this chapter includes explicit language, a bit of vulgarity, as well as some ass shaking here or there. In the event you were a bit concerned, I wish to foreshadow and warn you that this chapter is unapologetically Black as You're welcome. This is my digital chapter. The chapter that all of this hype has been built around. Yeah, I know some of y'all trying to see this in practice, but y'all gotta see the digital chapter first. Y'all see, y'all trying to figure out how a sister like myself finessed her way into a digital chapter. Or how an experience at trap karaoke singing my favorite song by Gucci Mane, I Think I Love Her, met us here. Even I wonder how we got here sometimes. But as the saying goes, scared money don't make no money. Or in this case, rejecting regular dissertation norms does not kind of really stop the show. But nothing keeps it the same. This digital chapter, my God, this is for the culture. This is for my book loving, back that ass up while driving, big and back yellow singing, Bodak yellow turned up, black boy back, black girl back, trap music loving people. As the footage shows, I present to my audience a bit of history about the trap music genre, and I also highlight the various ways that TPC is made present in the genre alongside amplification rhetoric. In addition, I use this area where I focus on trap music as a genre, the good and the bad, to lead up to my interview with rapper T.I. I also use this area to highlight some of the methods I use to complete this visual chapter, such as social media clips, an Instagram teaser, and my t-shirts. Then, I move my audience to the trap karaoke space, in which I discuss trap karaoke as a space that includes instances of TPC and amplification rhetoric. In this area, I also present my interview with trap karaoke founder Jason Mowat to provide additional context about the movement, but also how it serves as a site for TPC stuff.
User generated experience design. That's kind of how I see what I do. So, like that kind of.
And finally, I present my interviews with individuals that decided to wear their teeth for the trap at the trap karaoke event, in addition to trap karaoke participants. So, here are the questions I asked them. Y'all catch that? Let's talk about this one. So when asked what can people learn about trap karaoke and its importance, this gentleman who was a trap karaoke participant provided a straight answer that exemplified TPC and amplification rhetoric.
Unity. Unity is what I would say as far as trap karaoke. I don't know if they're able to hear what's going on in the background at the present time, but what you can hear is an audience of people who are united as one currently just to come together all over music. That's it. Nothing else. There's two things that people as a whole have as one: food, wine, and music. And that's what you have brought together in books. One of the two. So you can't deny it.
I use the interviews to highlight the amplification rhetoric made present in the trap karaoke space that could also be identified as TPC. It is now 11:14 and we are still here at trap karaoke. In case y'all can't tell, the sisters becoming tired, but we got a little bit more to go. I want to take some time out and be a little bit more reflective of what I've seen so far here at trap karaoke. So for those of you that did not remember, amplification rhetoric are discursive and communicative practices, both written and textual, that focus on embodying performances and come out in different spaces. So the three tenets for amplification rhetoric. The first tenet is in focus on the embodied lived experience. So what you guys have seen so far, you see people that's performing and all connect with one another. And one of the ways they connect is with Black culture. So how do they embody that? Dancing with one another. By performing a song and turning the mic out into the crowd. All of this is embodied, shared experiences in which we're relying upon one another while here at trap karaoke. The second tenet that we have here is the reclamation formation of narratives and all of that great stuff. So again, it's kind of going back to our invited experiences, but the difference here is one thing you notice: everybody wants to perform on their stage. They're asked where they're from, what is their story. Even though the conversations from our interviews, you hear a lot of people speak well about where they're from and why does it matter for them to be here. And for our final tenet is the inclusion of marginalized, or more for the acceptance and the showcasing of marginalized epistemologies and ways of knowing and knowledge making. We see that take place when we see the lyrics happening and other people who may or may not know the lyrics, but for the most part, the crowd knows it. One thing you may have noticed, there's not a single lyric posted on the screen. So that single part of the tacit knowledge that takes place is going to shape amplification record. So we're almost done. We're in our final round. I think there's 4 wild cards, but just want to check in and let you guys know the traffication is still going on.
To close the chapter, I provide an overview of private implications in addition to my own performing abstract period. And just for giggles, I added this personal favorite clip. So we're going to do great. Now we'll get a doctor. Well, then you have to defend it, so you have to present it all to
I don't know what the hell they call it.
Not that one.
I think it's. There we go. Sorry.
So, for my next side of study, I analyzed mission statements at 3 HBCUs, North Carolina A&T, Howard University, and Spelman College, in which I identified the amplification rhetorics present. HBCUs are colleges and our universities developed for the sole purpose of educating Black people. In this chapter, I provide my audience with a new way of understanding the mission statement as a genre, based on my reading from other genre theorists, in addition to other accrediting bodies such as SACS. I concluded that in order for a piece of text to be identified as a mission statement, it must indicate a potential end goal for the institution, the proposed outcomes for the student specifically, and mention the overall purpose of the institution. In order for that same mission statement to show evidence of amplification rhetoric, it must highlight the embodiment of the student population, showcase the shared narratives through historical significance in the Black community, and privilege the epistemologies of their student population by indicating the application of the acquired knowledge while enrolled at an HBCU. So what I noticed throughout my analysis and identification of amplification rhetorics in each time period, as I chose 3, there would typically be one tenet that stood out more than the other. So, for example, in the beginning, tenet 1 was most prominent since it focused on the embodiment and agency of the student population. So an example of this is shown on screen that was in North Carolina A&T's mission statement. So the one thing I want to highlight is at the very bottom, where it mentions there will be found graduates of the Agriculture and Mechanical College. So it's speaking about how these gentlemen can contribute back to society and distinguish themselves. So finally, I utilize this side of study to showcase how mission statements can also influence and be made apparent in institutional curriculum. I conclude that by reviewing HBCU curricula in relationship to the institution's mission statement, we are able to see amplification rhetorics as a means of pedagogy and practice in the field of TPC. So through my investigation of the potential connections between the mission statement and the school's curriculum, my findings suggest that an institution's mission statement or purpose often emerge in the curriculum of the specific time period. In addition, I interviewed 2 HBCU faculty members that are in the field of TPC. Dr. Kimberly Harper of North Carolina A&T and Dr. Alandria Lockett of Spelman College, to better support and understand the role HBCUs have had and continue to have in the development of TPC artifacts and communication strategies. So one quote from my interview with Dr. Harper stands out most to me, and I'm going to play that for you.
That's not the only tribute. Like, I get tired of thinking, oh, HBCU is a Black experience. It is, but that's not all we're about. So, I think HBCUs have the ability to tribute students who are not only culturally situated, but also students have skills-based knowledge. So if they come out knowing, okay, I can be audience members, I can write your brain, and I can work on the whatever use technology, but I also agree with the understanding that culture does not exist in that.
All right, Natasha, head blocking it, Lisa. All right, y'all. So before I let go, I wish to provide my final conclusions and implications for my project on my theoretical framework, amplification rhetoric, and their presence at trap karaoke in historically Black colleges and universities. So even though I did not mention it early in this presentation, I made various rhetorical moves throughout my project and utilized my conclusion as a space to explain these moves. So for example, I titled each chapter after a hip-hop album that was reflective of the topic matter in each chapter. So for example, chapter 2 is titled The Blueprint after Jay-Z's The Blueprint, in which this is where we see him blend multiple music genres together to create one of the best known albums today. I did this as well with creating my theoretical framework, combining multiple theories. The only exception to this rhetorical move I had made is the titling in my 5th chapter on HBCUs, in which I named Lift Every Voice and Sing, as I acknowledge HBCUs as a sacred space that I did not wish to align with a rap or hip-hop album. Another rhetorical move I made throughout my project is the use of AAVE and throwing shade. I made this choice as I wanted to privilege AAVE and utilize shade as a way to showcase my distaste for certain areas. I even strategically utilized profanity as a way to indicate my strong indignation or support for a specific example. So for a specific area. So for example, when describing the trap karaoke chapter, I made reference to it being unapologetically Black as fuck. This usage of fuck showed my strong support as well as a very clear indication of just how present Black culture and its greatness will be showcased. I also wish to mention that in completing my project, I had to face the tension in reviewing sites that some have faced criticism in their roles of actually hurting Black communities. But also, I had to address my own awareness of politics and respectability all up in my project. Finally, I legit had one of the harshest realities to face.
Oh, whoa, now you got too much dip on your chip.
Yeah, I was doing a bit too much. But in doing much, I was able to showcase amplification rhetorics in 2 Black spaces that I believe were best suited to illustrate amplification rhetorics in different ways. One was to a more general public audience, whereas the other was more for an academic audience. I offer my project as one way to amplify and present Black communities in their most authentic, unapologetically form. It also offers new ways of understanding HBCU curriculum and pedagogical practices. And finally, my project suggests new ways to approach TPC curriculum, pedagogy, and practices. I suggest that through the use of amplification rhetorics, we may be able to offer new ways of understanding TPC, its usage, and just how transformative it can be for Black communities and culture, HBCUs in the field of TPC. As discussed by Jason, the founder of Trap Karaoke, in our interview, we can see that it is possible for Black communities to take up technology and media and subvert them in ways that they become their own movements and industries. Even T.I.'s reference to making crack cocaine in some trap music serves as an instance of TPC. As a field, we must continue to revisit technical, professional, and communication as terms operating on their own, then together. And starting to recognize TPC in other realms outside of its traditional origins as a service to engineering and technology, we are able to see the field expand and become more inclusive. My project also informs the field of TPC on the various ways we should consider our audience and how it molds the production of our documents. Amplifying Black cultural references, communicative practices, and ideas are ways that the field of TPC can begin to take up socially just approaches to our scholarship. Even looking to performance as an example of TPC, we essentially forge a new lane for a new generation of more diverse TPC practitioners. Black communities create knowledge in ways that I'm sure may not be the same across the board. I believe my project has the potential to branch off into a vast number of research opportunities. I offer my theoretical framework, which has been inspired by my own life story, to assist and better speak to the lived experiences of other Black scholars just trying to graduate. offer new ways of understanding, and display the various ways Black communities can contribute to knowledge made within academia. It's not just about getting a degree, but it is about bringing to the forefront and showcasing some of the various ways, ideas, principles, and communication practices that make Black communities unique and lit. It's about forging a new lane for scholars to come that wish to revise how we think about not just TPC as a field, but also how we present our findings within the dissertation. But most importantly, it's about how we do it for the culture. Thank you.
Okay, so we're open to questions.
Do we have YouTube questions?
I have been telling people to prep their questions, and so I will let you know. We have hand claps.
Questions? I wonder if you could, since you had to go through it so fast, various pieces. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you saw how you saw the mission statements influence the curriculum.
Yes. So the mission statements influence the curriculum because as based on the tenets, I'll go back to the one example that we had already shown here. That's all right with you guys. So looking at here, that's a part of this mission statement. We spoke about how who is familiar with science and art relating to this calling in agriculture, mechanics, art, and other trades will not be compelled to canvass the country seeking employment. So that type of statement showed up in their mission statement, but it also influenced the way that they develop their curriculum based on agriculture, mechanics, or any other trade. Now, I know that may seem pretty obvious, but one thing that I also noticed when I was combing through these course bulletins, as they were called, the way in which they were teaching these classes was very specific to the mission statement. So a lot of times they were out building like churches and things of that nature, which would give back to their community, which could also be reflective in their mission statements. And it happened in other spaces as well.
So like course titles.
Like course titles?
Yeah. Like
I think I remember seeing one. It was Spelman College specific. Spelman College, was it college? Spelman Seminary at that time. Spelman had a lot of courses such as, and I don't want to mess it up. They were more so focused on teaching women how to be, I guess, better housemakers. I can't remember the language specifically. But what it did showcase in the mission statements was that it will prepare students better to go within their communities and better their communities. So at that time, a woman being a housemaker would make the most sense in that curriculum during that time. I think it may be questionable if that was a show up today, but during that time, that was when women were kind of more so housemakers. Another example of that was Spelman College. They had a nurse's, I guess it'd be like a nurse associate's and then like a nurse bachelor's type degree. And the associate's degree was set up for the student that may not be able to afford to be there, but it was also set up for the person that may have to go back home and take care of the community. And again, that showed up in their mission statement. I think it was in their origin years. It showed up in their mission statement that the woman that was at Spelman College, her focus was to go back into her community and be, I think it's something what people call top-notch, a top-notch contributor to society within her community. So that showed up in their mission statement as well. Talk to me, Gabby.
Okay, so how come you chose like historical ones specifically instead of current ones?
Good question. So I picked 3 times actually. So I selected 5 years after founding. So each of these, that's why you see here listed, there are different 5 years because they all start the same different years. So I picked 5 years after founding because I assumed or I made the idea that by then they kind of have an idea of what they're going through. I do want to backtrack and kind of mention that I picked these 3 colleges because they're kind of most prominent and it was easier to get a hold of their archives out of all of them. I do want to backtrack and kind of mention that I picked these 3 colleges. No, I couldn't. Yeah, no. No, we couldn't find them archives. But no, so that was the first one. And then the other one that I did was 2 years after the Civil Rights Act, in which schools were then integrating their things of that nature. And then I picked that time because we knew the mission statements would have to change. They couldn't explicitly state again that they were created for the sole purpose of educating Black people. But what they did do was, which was our tenet 2, which was shared narratives. What they did was those mission statements focused more on their historical significance. So that was their way that they rerouted about, like, you know, educating Black people. And then I did the present years. And currently we see an HBCU revival. Everybody's trying to get them back together. We're fighting for them again. So this is where we also see 1, 2, and 3 really start to show up again. One thing that I probably would say, I think 1 and 3 were probably most prominent in present times. So I want to try to pick areas where we had different things that shifted within culture, which will be reflective in their mission statements, but it also showed up in their curriculum as well, which I want to make a whole different project.
Right, and then also, because I didn't know this, well, I mean, I knew it, but I had to be reminded that after the Civil Rights Act, no more
HBCUs
could be created. So it was sort of a time to look to see what the schools did when they weren't able to be. That was it. There was a there's a period in time when no more could be created. So it seemed like a
so the mission statement had to, you know, shift as well. I think what's most cool about that 2 years after founding, like I said, the mission statement had to shift. Even though it wasn't for this project, I also did take a moment like to look back at like NC, North Carolina, not A&T, NC State, which was North Carolina's agricultural mechanical project, or something like that. So I went back and looked at theirs, and like it just didn't show as reflective of like a shift in theirs either. I noticed that too. Like the historical significance didn't show up in theirs as well. Like I didn't put that in my chapter, but it was something I just noticed as I was going through all the curriculums and the course catalog for routines. They changed names.
So what was the most recent year that you took mission statements?
2018-19. Because for some of them, they had the same mission statements based on like the accrediting bodies and things of that nature. So that was a whole nother thing that I wanted to go through. So you got your board of trustees that you got to make happy. You got to make SACs happy. You got all these people that you got to make happy. In creating that mission statement. So I think North Carolina A&T's was changing yearly. Spelman's was set to only change every 2 years. And then Howard, I couldn't find that out, like when theirs was set to change. So like I said, looking at the ones that were most current, 2018, 2019, you can definitely see the HBCUs. I think the only one where you really didn't see that in was North Carolina A&T's. And I think that's really because like the big dogs had their hand in that pot. And the UN,
that one is one that was recently on the top.
Yes, but even the UNC system, they have like very specific of what a mission statement should do. No, A&T was. It ended up on the chopping block too. They're gonna get rid of all of us. But UNC, the UNC Board of Governors, they have an actual handbook that says like you must have these specific statements. So one thing that happened was, so I redefined mission statements as a genre. Sometimes what would happen, that vision statement would show up, that historical statement, all of that I was redefining as a part of the mission statement, which influenced, all work together. So that's what I noticed with North Carolina A&T. So they had like a mission statement, a vision statement, a history statement, and it's like, all that's your mission statement. So let's put all that together. Hope I answered your question.
I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if this is going to make sense. But you talked about your audiences. And I was wondering if you saw, aside from like TPC, if you had to measure different audiences and ones that you named here. Because I can see this like on a larger level. I was wondering if you had any other audiences in mind.
Yes, that was one of the reasons why I did the digital chapter, because I wanted to be able to, I don't want to say take the academy out into the public per se, but I think it's also important, this is kind of like another project I'm thinking of, about how dissertations are living documents and they actually have impact outside of just what we publish. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do the digital chapter, to kind of meet another audience who may not be familiar with what dissertating may be or present to them these theoretical frameworks in a way that kind of aligns with what we already know. I didn't have time to showcase the T.I. interview, but that was probably one of the most interesting things I found, outside of him trying to out-talk me. But one of the most interesting things in his big words. Oh, like, man, I ain't gonna say that, he might be watching. But, one of the biggest things that I realized, T.I. was very knowledgeable of TPC. And that was one of the reasons why the actual definition changed. Because when he asked me what it was, it tripped me up because I couldn't answer him. I couldn't answer him that part about technical. So he got professional communication, he didn't get technical. So that forced me to go back, and Natasha helped me with that. That forced me to go back and revise that. But it also gave me a way of understanding that, okay, Black communities get this TPC thing. It's just not communicated the same way or articulated the same way as it is in the academy. And even I noticed that I know those questions went shot up fast. And it's one of those questions is, are you familiar with TPC? Yes or no, I define it for them. How do you feel that your shirt or the trap karaoke space are examples of TPC? Those answers were some of the most amazing answers for me. Because first of all, I think one thing that happened throughout my interviews, people were like, be on stage, lit like, turn up! And then they would get on this camera and be like, hello, I know Terry. And they're like, we about to pause and be like, all right, bet, look, you ain't got to do that. Just answer it the way it is. And what's funny about the interview with that gentleman was he just kept going. And we were like, you know, TPC, thank you. But yeah, so I was definitely thinking about another audience, specifically with that chapter. And that's kind of where it comes to that respectability of politics thing, where I slightly mentioned, because I didn't want to just drop a chapter on trap karaoke with cussing, ass shaking, and everything else to piss everybody off. I knew I still got to get a job at some point. Like, you just got to kind of play the game as well. But I also addressed why that can be problematic in my final chapter too. Thank you.
I just think it kind of builds on the answer you just gave, but I just think it's really smart that you chose Trap Karaoke as one site and HBCUs as another site. And you talked a little bit in your presentation and just now and your answer about respectability politics, but I'm wondering about the relationship that you see between those two sites and why you think they're productive together.
Yes.
In your project.
Yes. Well, one thing that I thought of when I initially picked them, they're both Black safe spaces. As bad as it sounds, like, of course, white people can go to HBCUs. So we know that. But these are spaces that are curated and created specifically for Black people. And it shows up in various ways throughout both of these spaces. So one thing like I want to mention about trap karaoke specifically, a lot of the music that was played, like I said, the lyrics were not displayed on screen. And even the white people that would be there, you could see them vibing, but of course, if you hit the N word, they would shut up. Like stuff like that, you will see it would happen. So that Black safe space, it was protected. That's one thing I would say. And even today, I see that we're starting to more so protect our HBCUs. Like currently, we have in Georgia, they're trying to merge Savannah State. What's the other two HBCUs in Georgia? They trying to merge, Natasha. Excuse me, Dr. Jones.
Armstrong.
Armstrong had an HBCU.
Is it Fort Valley? No.
It's three HBCUs that are in Georgia that they're currently trying to merge. And the argument that they're making for that, it would make it easier on their resources and boost their enrollment. But we all kind of know what's happening. So I definitely picked those spaces because they're oftentimes protected and they're specifically aligned with Black communities, Black practices. And they take into account the way and the needs of Black people. Black people need to be able to go somewhere and scream "Nuck if you buck" and not worry about it. I thank my committee for being able to go and meet a trap karaoke, and they were good and they enjoyed themselves too. Like they knew how to be in that space and be good. And they learned how to be at trap karaoke and be lit. And you know, again, it's just about. I think that was my main thing. I wanted two Black spaces that I knew that were protected, that were sacred for Black people. Sorry, I kind of went on.
No, you could. I have a question from YouTube if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Miss Brooks, I'm not sure how to say her first name. Tatishiana. Okay. She's
TK.
TK. Thank you. Thank you. TK asks, if you were continuing this question, what would you delve into next to go along with the information you have already provided?
My whole career. So I guess the first thing that I really want to revisit, there are actually two things I really want to revisit, and it's kind of balanced. First thing I really want to revisit is how is it that we are dissertating and how do we get where we are here today? And the reason I say that, because this has been one of the most traumatic, endearing, exhausting experience of my life. But I want to really know, and in a good way, y'all, but I do want to know how is it that we've developed this genre and how is it that we've got to a space where we say here, right here? Like where's that in-between step for everybody? So that's something I really want to go back to. And then the next thing I really want to go back to is the development of TechCom programs at HBCU. So for those of you watching, there is not a degreed outcome TechCom program at an HBCU. North Carolina A&T is the only HBCU with a TechCom concentration. So that is something I really want to go back to and start pulling at and figure out why that's continuing to happen. So those are the two top projects I want to get out in the next 5 years. Look, she got an essay.
She didn't know she had missed the answer.
Oh.
So she was clarifying, but
Okay.
yeah. Answered perfectly, she says. Thank you.
Anything else from the committee that you wanted to address while others are here? Or showcase, I mean, obviously we got to see more of what the group here got to see
Sorry, it was just rushed
and
through.
talk more.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
So I think one thing that Tim and I talked a little bit about was the role of women, especially in relation to trap music. And she mentioned earlier about spaces that are protected. And I wanted to know if she could talk a little bit more about the discussion that we kind of had about the role of women in trap music and how women show up in those spaces. Because I know we had a little bit of a discussion about how hard it was to kind of, find a ton of stuff out there. So if she could share that, I think that would be helpful too.
Yes.
Tim, did you hear me?
Yeah. So there's actually two parts on that I would like to answer. At Trap Karaoke, one of the first set of rules they give you guys, if the young woman says no, she says no. So if a woman don't want to talk to you, leave her alone. So that's one thing I did want to mention that Trap Karaoke does. But in regards to the trap music genre, so when I went into this, I wanted to interview one female artist and one male artist. I could not find a female artist that I knew would possibly want to sit down with me. Trap music as a genre is male dominated, and I tried my best to not make it appear that this is the only genre that is male dominated, because we see this happen in country music just in different ways. But one of the things I could not really wrap my brain around was that women are in the trap music genre, we just do not shine light on it. And the way that women trap is very different from the way that men trap. And I think that was where the big turning point was in that, because one thing, like that definition showed, it kind of, we're moving trapping away from just being selling drugs. So as we're moving it away from that, we can definitely start to see how women are actually trapping as well. But then we also see it become, our reference is more raunchy or sexual. So one of the examples I gave, like in the video, kind of like Cardi B, like the song Money, honestly is really about her trapping. If we're gonna be honest, I mean, she's stripping, making money. But the point is, it's the same concept of getting to the money with the set end goal. However, we're in an area where it's not really showing up. But I will say we do have a reemergence and like a good revamp of women starting to show back up in the trap music genre, in the trap music scene. And people are really seeing that. Like we got Megan Thee Stallion coming up, Cardi, like I mentioned. Kaya tries to make a comeback. City Girls, even though some people don't acknowledge them as trap, a lot of them are all within that realm. Did I do it, Natasha? Excuse me, Dr. Jones?
Okay, well, we're gonna sign off here from YouTube. Thank you for watching.
Thank y'all. We'll be back.
And thank y'all all for
I don't
coming.
know. Those are Google Chrome. You can just tell them we're gonna be back.
I don't want them to see me.
They're gonna see
Yeah,
it.
you all up there, baby.
Well,
Thank
Siobhan,
y'all.
you take the computer out there. You take the computer out there. You talk to the people. Tell them I'll be back. All
I
right,
don't know
tell
what's
them.
happening.
Thanks for coming.
Just take the computer out here and talk to the people. Just leave it streaming. Tell them I'm coming in like 5-10 minutes.
She's coming back.
No.
Or 20 minutes. I don't know how long I gotta sit in.
I don't know how long.
I don't know how long I gotta sit in.
I don't know.
Go talk to the people on YouTube. I'll be back.
You. Oh Lord. Okay. So Tip is now, yep. Hey Bob, hey Boo. Talking to the committee and academia, and at this time they're asking them additional questions. So right now, if y'all got extra questions or anything, comments y'all want to share with her, love to. And if you can, send this out to other folks so we have more people watching and learn about TPC.
Probably.
Y'all know I ain't being on camera. I don't know. Okay, good. I just paused it.
Oh, you paused it?
Yes.
Okay. I know I looked crazy on that.
Girl, was that funny?
You was like, I was like, no, sis, no. I am the worst. I don't go live for nothing. So, girl, mine was like all this. I was like, really? You can see all my activeness. Yeah, I'm like, oh, geez. I said, look, thank you for taking over this. No problem. I was the best. But it didn't feel like too long that I was in there.
I'm not even sure that it was 15 minutes. I don't even.
When I was answering the papers?
Yeah, I don't even.
It was.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
If it was 10 minutes, it might.
It was not. It was pleasant for me. They would ask me, you know. I was thinking I was going hard, you know. Yeah.
Yours is fine.
Yeah.
Except for mine are like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I had a dissenter in my.
It just took me aback.
She was just being extra. It was fine because I handled it. But what was funny was,
No, I'm making sure
it's paused. What was funny was, because I know her, of course, when I was answering the question, I was fine. But when I looked around the room, everybody else was pissed off because she was just trying. She was trying it.
I'm gonna see you later in office. I got office hours.
Oh, hold on.
Do you come to campus for all? Well, you're just right here. So I just figured since this is my first one, I want to work out in